Once again, we give you a warm welcome to the Right Here, Right Now Honduras platform. We have an interesting topic, contraceptive methods. We have two youth that, based on their experience and knowledge, will be giving us information about what these methods are, how they can be used, as of what age, and all of these doubts are going to be clarified by Natalia Lozano and Eimer Asiel Arriaga. So we're going to talk about Natalia. Natalia is currently the national coordinator for the Right Here, Right Now platform in Honduras. She started in 2017. She's a young feminist activist lawyer defending human rights of women, emphasizing on sexual and reproductive health and rights. Her work experience, it comes from coordinating projects. She facilitates training processes on advocacy, and she also appears in international and national conferences. In the case of Einer, he is a project facilitator in Action Youth Honduras. He knows the platform since 2017. He's an intern of the psychology career in the National Autonomous University of Honduras. He's a project consultant, and he's trained in sexual reproductive rights. Natalia, thank you for being here. And we are talking about a very interesting topic, and that for many, once again, is a taboo for society. Contraceptive methods. At what age can we start using them? What are the ones offered in the market? What are the advantages and disadvantages? You have the floor. I think the topic of contraceptive methods have always been handled very sensitively. It is very difficult for parents to keep a box of condoms at home. So when you start your sex life, they can be available to you. Or sometimes it is hard for the youth to tell their parents that they want to plan or they want to protect themselves because of taboo. I remember when I started my sexual activity at 17 years old, I had my contraceptive method on the table because I had to take it with breakfast. And I remember one of my aunts asked, "Who is that pills of?" And my mom said, "Natalia's." And my aunt thought it was a scandal. And she was like, "Why are the contraceptive on the table?" And my mom said, "Yes, I want her to take care of them herself." So that doesn't happen usually in families that have that are very conservative. But I feel it's because out of ignorance or not knowing. So when are we gonna have contraceptive methods? When we start our sexual life voluntarily. So if I start my sexual life at this age, people have to know that you're going to do it. Approved or not by a parent, the youth are going to do it. And many people said that even the couple goes out with a chaperone, they're still going to do it, no matter the age, the time, or whatever. Yes, you can have a chaperone by your mom or dad. If you want to do it, you're still going to do it. And that's the difficult part to understand when you start having a sexual active life. But then a sensitive topic comes along because there is a taboo about sexuality. There is a taboo about having a healthy sexual life without stigmas, because the experiences of most people are traumatic. And that's how they channel it, as a traumatic situation. So they don't want their children to go over that because they have gone through that in a way that was not correct. So if we made natural talking about sexual education, if we would made natural talking about sexuality and family planning, then the rate of teenage pregnancies would lower, and we would have sexually active people who are responsible. Because in sexual education, we include the work on self-esteem of people and consent, or starting my sexual life because I want it, because I desire it, and not because I have an external additional pressure, making me start an early sexual education, and more in men than women, because usually girls are told that they're gonna have sexual intercourse when they get married, not before that. And the church tells you cannot have sexual intercourse. That is a sin. No extramarital relationships, because it's prohibited by religion. But that is a confusion for youth. Let's remember that the stage of adolescence is where the youth start awakening all of those passions. As you were saying, confusion comes into play here. So now we're going to talk about an important topic between the men and women. What is the difference? At what age did you start using your first contraceptive method, if you used any?
Indeed, I began my sex life when I was 18 years old. I recall that so far I fortunately had the knowledge on how to use the condom correctly, for example. But this was because I began getting involved in organizations that were working on sex and reproductive rights and health. And so I began to be trained on these issues. Because if I then think about my experience on the educational field at schools and in high schools, it is very few what is being said about sexuality or contraceptive methods. It is very little that is being approached. I recall that as perhaps I received 2 lectures on the correct use of the condom. And so far, I don't recall if the lectures were well provided or not. They were forgotten. So the best, as Natalia was saying, would be to have comprehensive sex education from schools up to a higher education, because you never stop learning. And it is important to take this into account, the comprehensive sex education. So it is thanks to that I was able to, thanks to the knowledge that I acquired, was it that I was able or get to know at what point to use a condom.
And I imagine when you received that class in your school, everyone started laughing and mocking something that can define your life.
Of course.
Because if you misuse a condom, then many consequences could come along. Not only that you're going to become a father at an early age, but also infections, right? STIs, when you use it incorrectly.
Yes.
You have children.
Yes, I'm a father.
But I imagine he is very young.
Yes, is 1 year old.
Oh no, he cannot even speak now.
It's quite small, but I'm sure the training he will receive will be training that is based on comprehensive sex education, gender equality, and many topics that will have been approached throughout all of this interview or this space. So it is important then to also ingrain. If we have the knowledge, it is important to share it with other people, since one way or another this will make an impact, and also people will become agents of change. And they will be sharing their knowledge with other people.
Natalia, you mentioned that you started using contraceptive methods at 17. What motivated you? What encouraged? And who told you this is the best, this is what you can take? And the decision that you made of starting having sexual relationships at that short age, because adolescents are still at that stage where we don't know what we want. And that is why it's called adolescent, from all of the pain that we go through. But what led you to that? My mom is going to laugh if she sees this. My mom gave me a comprehensive sexual education throughout my life, so that was not out of this world for me. And at that age, I had a formal boyfriend. I had a year of relationship, or 8 months, almost a year. It was a formal relationship in terms of being an adolescent, right? And when I decided that I was ready, First, I went to the gynecologist to ask what was the best method for planning that we could take. And we decided for a combined method between the pill and the condom. And I remember that I told him, we are going to go together to the gynecologist and you're going to come with me because I need you to understand about this decision. I really needed for him to understand, not only me, I needed for him to be there and assume the responsibility of planning together. What did the gynecologist said when he saw two youth asking what to use? That he wanted more youth to go to the consultations because he would avoid hearing the tragical stories in the consultations. And your boyfriend at that time, what did he said? He was very shy. He didn't know how to react, what to say, but he said yes to going with me. And after that, I took my mom to lunch to tell her that I was going to start my sexual life, and if she saw contraceptive and condoms at home, she wouldn't be afraid. And you almost said that you were going to get married. And she was like, I don't know, I was not ready for this moment. And then I just felt confidence. I felt I could trust her to tell her. And she said, I'd rather give you the money to buy the contraceptive methods than you being at risk. I explained to her why I decided to do the combined method. She agreed. The combined method means not using two condoms. It is using one condom to protect you from STIs, and in case that doesn't work, then you have the second method, which is the normal contraceptive methods, hormones, yes. Einir, your work, you work on sexual health. Tell us about this platform.
Sure. My work has always been focused on the topic of sex and reproductive rights and health as being approached with young people, from youth towards youth. So I recall that at some point we would attend educational centers to train groups of youth on the topic of contraceptive methods and sexually transmitted diseases and other topics that are related with sex and reproductive health and rights. And the purpose then would be to replicate this knowledge that I was trained in at some point, a training that was very broad, and then that way, because the educational system is not approaching or not touching on these topics as they should be, then we would see ourselves in the task as a civil society to attend and approach these topics. And so it is of huge importance because young people we are the ones that at some point may lack the knowledge about all these topics that may be taboos, may be stigmatized, may be demonized. Up to demonized, they have always been demonized. And so it is quite difficult, perhaps, even in some areas that are more rural, to go and talk about these topics. So how can we as young people talk about these topics? Besides, there's another factor that influences a lot is adultrentism. They believe that we young people cannot provide training or education or teach other young people. Often when teachers were in the classrooms, students would be shy and not speak. So then we needed to approach teachers directly and say, do you think you could leave us with the students alone for a while? Because otherwise young people would not be able to speak up because of fear and the stigma that exists on these issues.
You made an essential point. The lack of sexual education also indicates that people cannot use a contraceptive method, and that is why we see a lot of ladies and gentlemen on the street with a lot of children behind them. It is always said or critiqued why they don't plan, but it's sometimes they don't have money to eat, and even less for contraceptive methods. Is there an organization or a foundation in our country to give contraceptive pills or condoms to the population? It should be given in the health centers for free. And also, Ciudad Mujer has a space for comprehensive assistance to youth, but only for women. And Asom Plafa has several programs nationwide. The issue here is that if you as a mom find a box of condoms in your child's room, the first thing most do is get scandalized and reprimand them. I would take my child for lunch and tell them, you know what, I'm so happy because you're protecting yourself. But you have a different education. Let's remember the education that everyone has. But that should be very satisfactory as a parent, knowing that I have made such a good job educating them that they're protecting them and they are avoiding an STI. So in your opinion, contraception is very important? Yes, it is very important. Every body is different. Everybody's going to assimilate a different contraception. What methods for planning do we have? We have hormonal methods. We have non-hormonal methods. The only contraception that protects you from an STI is the male and female condoms. It is hard in Honduras to get female condoms because here people don't use the male one, but it's worse about the female. I've heard that it makes allergies or whatever. I've heard men say that you don't eat candy with wrapping, etc. Yes, unfortunately that happens out of chauvinism, the lack of knowledge, and being irresponsible. Because I have traveled to many countries in the world. I've been to Buenos Aires, I've been to Kenya, to Geneva, France, and in all of these places, I have never heard these kinds of things. So this is a cultural and structural topic that poses a situation that puts you at risk. It is putting you at risk because the non-desired pregnancy rate is very high. And it is not measured because no woman is going to say, I didn't want to be a mother, right? And I'm going to do it. No one is going to say that, right? It's easier for men to leave their children, and the responsibility is only for women. And women can get pregnant once a year. Men can get 365 women pregnant if they wanted to, almost one per day. So contraception have one responsibility is using the condom, and no one is using it. And at the end, the ones to blame, the ones that have to endure the education and all of the economic, emotional, and social stigma is women, not men. So here we have a big topic of inequality. Right? And in the case of the hormonal contraception, there are women that have no problem using hormones, but there are others that do have issues. You can use a contraception and then you stop getting your period. If you take a different one, it makes you put on weight. Even you lose your sexual desire, then your breast hurt, your nipples hurt, and you don't feel like you can be you 100%. Because your partner doesn't want to use a condom and you have to use this and you don't feel the way you should. Is there a contraception method other than the condom for men? Is it necessary for the men also to suffer from these things that women have suffered throughout the years? There are studies to create a contraception method in an injection for men. Einer, would you get it if it comes?
I would carry out a vasectomy directly. But in any case, I'm sure that if I had to plan, I would do it. Because this is something that was mentioned, the issue of the lack of equality. Most methods are designed for women, and there are just two for men, who are the condom and the vasectomy. So we need to do things right.
Lately, I've heard that a lot of men get vasectomies. Is that a process of about 30 to 45 minutes procedure, right?
Yes,
it's fairly quick.
Clinic procedure. It doesn't have any pain. You come out walking. You don't suffer from erectile dysfunction or
You would
precocious
recommend it?
ejaculation. No, I'm about to do it because I don't want to be a father anymore. But I would do it. I recommend it, especially for every man who is irresponsible. They should rather have a vasectomy. Or if men do not wish to be a parent, then that's great. Just have a vasectomy because ultimately it's each person's body and they should respect it. I would recommend it.
Okay, something that has also been very controversial is the day after pills. We have mentioned this in several of these shows, but do you recommend? Do you don't recommend? Maybe because not because you have used it, but because you have knowledge about this product. I would recommend it, and I will tell you something. Emergency contraception was in Honduras in the year 1999 with the Minister of Health, Plutarco Castellanos. After Hurricane Mitch and everything that happened with Hurricane Mitch, there was a pressure to bring the emergency contraception, and it was included in the basic chart of health. You could go to any health center and get the day after pill, the Plan B, or emergency contraception pill, as it is called. But what happened? In 2009, after the coup d'etat, it is prohibited through the Ministry of Health. The use of ECP without having any kind of scientific evidence. And it has been a debate after that. From 2009 to 2020, it has been a constant debate. Would I recommend it? Yes. We brought, I think it was in 2015 or 2016, we brought Dr. Nue Rousseau, and she, along with Dr. Horacio Prostato, they made a study to know finally if emergency contraception was an abortion method or not. And there was a study in over 80 women, and it was not an abortion method. If the pregnancy is there, the pill is not going to have any effect on you. However, we have to also understand that emergency contraception, as its name is an emergency. It's a Plan B. It's not Plan A. It doesn't mean that I have sex, I will take ECP not to be pregnant. Could that bring a series of issues in the body of the women to have such a hormonal bomb? You're not going to have different effects like taking Panadol, but it's going to be different. Have you used it? Has it produced? Yes, I have used it. Has it produced something in your body? Just irregular bleeding and hurt in my breasts because of the excess of hormones. Have you used it with a partner?
The emergency contraceptive pill as such, no, because last month it has been prohibited for 11 years. But yes, the USPE method,
can you explain
which
a
is
little bit?
traditional. The USPE method consists in using 8 different pills, in this case from the contraceptive pills of daily use, of hormone treatment, hormone contraception methods. You need to use 4 pills, and 12 hours later then you use the other 2 pills. It fulfills the same role as the morning emergency contraceptive pill, but as long as you do it within 72 hours after a non-protected sex intercourse. It fulfills the same function, and I have used that method with my partner. We have gone through that only once with my partner, and we did achieve the goal, which is preventing pregnancy. Nausea, vomiting, fatigue, it varies depending on the organism. Natalia was saying, so it varies widely. A person can have strong side effects. Perhaps another woman may have lesser effects or may not have all the list of secondary effects, but it varies.
Okay, so we are going to talk in the case of Natalia. Why would you recommend this based on your experience? And you had told me before, but in this work that you have been doing as a platform, what is the advice that you give to the young population? In terms of emergency contraception, it is it is called Plan B as well. It's a Plan B. If the condom broke, you can have Plan B if you don't want to get pregnant. If you are survival of sexual violence, take the pill. It is incredible that we are in 2020 and Honduras does not have a protocol for assistance for the victims of sexual abuse, because that chapter of the pregnancy avoiding pregnancy is not approved here. If your normal contraception method fails, or if you have a suspicion that it fails, if you have diaphragm or a female condom or whatever you want to use, if you have IDU and you think that it moved, if you have any other contraception method that you think failed, take the Plan B. Don't do it regularly. If the condom broke and you have taken 2 Plan Bs, then I would recommend have double protection. Use or have the normal pills, Implanon or injection, but talk to your doctor before making a decision, because there are also regular contraception methods that have long-term things that could happen to your body. But above all, we recommend the use of condom. What have you achieved with this? What are the achievements in this platform regarding the methods? We have done a lot of socialization for the public support of all of the topics of sexual reproductive health and rights and education. We have brought this topic to the media, so this is a normal discussion. We allowed for the people in our social media to talk in favor or against it. We love this debate. We like having people thinking different, so we can know where's the taboo, where's the stigma or the barrier. So we work around these attacks. So we don't look at them as attacks, but just about ignorance on the topics that we are working on. So there is this information that at the end of the day is useful for us. It calls my attention about the attacks. Oftentimes in the media, people are attacked who are in favor of the day after pill. I saw if it comes to the Congress, there's attack. Another civil society that is pro-life, there's an attack. So what can we do? What can be done to change the mindset of these people? All of the people that you mentioned are directly responsible for the increase of pregnancy rates in Honduras, the increase of sexual violence, and the increase of all of these cases that we see of irresponsible sexuality. So if we have made abstinence, because that doesn't happen. If abstinence would happen, then we would have the problems that we have right now. And abstinence, it is a personal decision of any person at any age. Abstinence until you feel ready is part of their decision. Yes, and if you have started your sexual life and you want to stop, that's also valid. It's completely valid. But that cannot be the only alternative to be given when you can see that there's statistics that are against you in terms of this topic. So let's naturalize talking about contraception methods. That is a need in the country, of the contraception methods in the broad spectrum. We have to educate journalists. We need to have focus groups with people that go to church. If they are afraid of what their children are going to learn, let's have these focus groups with parents and also with the youth, so this topic can become natural. Because when we have something that is different, usually we want to attack as a defense mechanism. But when we know in depth what these topics are about, maybe you're going to have a greater acceptance and you can know that there are more coincidences than attacks. Yes, that's correct. More people in favor than against it, if we could put it that way. Einer, let's talk about a topic that is kind of funny, let's say. What has been the worst time in your life when you had a sexual encounter where the method that you used, like a condom, didn't work? And what did you do?
When we speak about sexuality, everything is seen as taboo, and there are comments that cause fear. Every comment has an impact at the end. At least in my own experience, they had. I was told, if you're going to have a sexual relationship, your partner may bleed, or you may bleed, or other things that may cause fear. So when I had my first intercourse, I faced that difficulty, that my penis couldn't keep an erection prior to penetrating. I was nervous. I didn't know what to do. And then, I don't know what came to me. I was not focused. Yes, I was 18 years old. I began my sex life back then, and it wasn't that I masturbated a lot because of that same fear, or you're afraid because of the prejudices ingrained in you. So at this time, it was when I bumped into this situation, and I wonder what happened to me. And another factor steps in, which is misogyny or machismo. If I said, I'm a man, what happens to me? Why isn't my penis responding? And there came a time when I became more relaxed. My partner back then understood, and she said, that's okay. If you can't, then that's okay. But then I was, gaining trust, and we managed to complete the intercourse. But it was very difficult, because then afterwards, when I acquired more knowledge, and when I became more introspective and began thinking of what happened, I thought it was all the fear that was ingrained in me while I was growing up, that sexuality is something that needs to be limited in order to understand it. That is wrong, that is evil to have sexual relationships if you're not married, or what do I know, and all of the things, all the myths and the lies that at the end are stuck in your head, and it's hard to get them out. And perhaps it doesn't cause an impact on some people, but some they do, as in
Natalia,
my case.
What would be your favorite contraceptive method, and why would you tell others to use it? I would always say the condom. It's safe against STIs, specifically if you have a formal relationship and you haven't had problems of unfaithfulness within your relationship, and that is going to be long term, then I say, okay, look for a hormonal one, not to use a condom. But if it's just casual sex, please use a condom. You're not the only people in the sex life of that other person. And if they are sleeping with you, they're sleeping with many others without a condom. So use the condom in all those cases. And I think also that if the hormonal method is too aggressive to your body, I think your partner can make a genuine sacrifice of using the condom always. All of the contraceptions have pros and cons. What happens if the condom fails? You can use a plan B. If all of the condoms are failing, is because you cannot use it, or you're doing it on purpose, right? If one brand doesn't work, look for another brand. There are many brands of condoms in the country of different prices. We have condoms from the state. You can say that you don't feel anything. It's better to get used to using a condom than getting used to raise a child if you are not prepared. And it's more economic, yes. And it's valid as well. I always ask myself, why do people use contraception? They are using it to prevent pregnancy exclusively, or to protect themselves from STIs. You know what a chlamydia is, what gonorrhea is, what HIV is? Do you know? Would you take a risk in your life if you knew the real consequences of these STIs because you're not using a condom? And if you are ready to risk it and to adventure your life, well, that's okay. That's your personal decision. You can have it. But genuinely, how can we raise awareness on using the condom? You can use the IUD. There are women who love it. Now we have the copper T or the hormonal T. since it is hormonal, it lasts from 3 to 5 years, and it throws hormones, right? But the copper tea doesn't have hormones, but the periods are longer and more painful. And there are women who reject it, but there are others that have no issue using it. And there's a myth that there's a situation where women give birth in spite of the IUD. But it's also true that it is a device that you have to check, and your gynecologist has to explain, and there has to be a control. You have to review it to guarantee that it hasn't moved and that it is in a proper position to avoid those situations. Great. So just to wrap up, what do you expect from Honduran society? What is the dream in terms of this topic, and especially of sexual health?
Well, personally, my dream would be for emergency contraceptive pills to be legal. It has been a 12-year-old struggle, almost. And also that we could implement comprehensive sex education, and these topics are approached as they should be, as a priority, that they are not left on the a secondary field. With the pandemic, a lot of problems emerged, and problems that became that were on a second level went to the fifth level, and especially sexuality topics. So my dream would be that authorities take it seriously, that young people are the ones who are mostly suffering due to the lack of contraceptive methods, due to the lack of comprehensive sex education at schools and high schools. And if we could implement all of this, then the rate of pregnancies in Honduras perhaps will be lower. And also emergency contraceptive pills, which are necessary to prevent pregnancies, because Honduras is one of the countries, as like Natalia was saying, that has one of the lowest rates of highest rates of teenage pregnancies, and also of girls and women who are suffering from sexual abuse. So emergency contraceptive pills will be an alternative to prevent these pregnancies that are related to sexual abuse.
And you, Natalia? Aside from joining what Einer just said, because that's what we work for, that's where we coincide and we agree that there should be CSE, that there shouldn't be any taboos or stigma around the topic of sexuality. I also want for maternity and paternity to be desired, for genuinely the responsibility to be shared, and for this decision to be planned. I am tired of seeing girls and boys in the street drugging themselves downtown Tegucigalpa because we didn't have comprehensive sexual education. And if someone doesn't have CSE, and this is a message that I want to leave very clear, and you start getting a lot of children, it is easier for you to go into extreme poverty because you are not going to be able to get a job that will allow you to have a decent life with your family. The unemployment rate is huge in the country, and that is an issue that has to be addressed from health, from the rights, and from what I can really support. And for my children to go to school, for them to have an appropriate education, and for the decision of maternity and paternity, something that can be reasoned and thought of, and for us to just stop making babies the way God wants it, because that is not how it works. Thank you, Natalia. Thank you, Einer, for clarifying those doubts. As youth, you have also spoken scientifically about those methods, which is very important. The Honduran population, not all of it, knows about these methods, and even those that go to the university that have a career or that have knowledge in technology don't know about contraception methods, and that is the reality of Honduran society. So in conclusion, I could say that what I have learned right now is about the importance of comprehensive sexual education. Thank you for being with us in this platform.